Hello, this is Crystal Racing. It's the 2024 F1 season preview / 2023 F1 driver review. I'm going to keep it very short and sweet. Happy New Year for those of you who haven't watched the video for now about a month. If I'm going to be honest, it's very hard to do a real in-depth video of a season where Max Verstappen won 19 out of 22 races because not only was the Red Bull RB19 a great car, Max Verstappen was absolutely phenomenal. And in this modern era of F1 since maybe the mid-1980s, I think he's driven the best single season for any driver since 1980. When you include the likes of Alan Prost, Ayrton Senna in 1988, where he won 8 races, but of course Prost took 7 wins that year. And we have to remember he won that championship on a technicality because, of course, only the 11 best results for the season count. Meaning that Senna won, but Prost actually scored more points that year. Nigel Mansell set a new record for most wins in 1992 when he won 9 out of 16 races, but of course reliability scuppered his chances of winning more races that year in the Williams Renault FW14B, was it? With the active suspension. And then, of course, Michael Schumacher, as we know, dominated the early 2000s, with 2002 and 2004 being the standout years where he won 11 races and 13 races respectively, setting new records, with, of course, Michael Schumacher also being the first driver to win 7 championships and the first to win 5 consecutive titles in a row, and Ferrari becoming the first team to win 6 constructors' titles consecutively. But of course, he did come very close to losing in 2003 when Kimi came within just 2 points. It could have ended so badly. Oh, what a shame. My man Kimi was so good back then. But of course, Sebastian Vettel also had a couple of phenomenal seasons in 2011 and 2013 with Red Bull. Winning 11 races in 2011 and 13 races in 2013. At times looking like a younger version of Michael Schumacher. And of course, he also set a new record for 9 consecutive race victories at the end of 2013, along with, of course, becoming the youngest world champion, the youngest double world champion, and of course, the youngest triple world champion, and the youngest quadruple world champion. But of course, that does leave the opportunity for Max to become the youngest quintuple champion ever, and to win 5 championships consecutively as well, beating Schumacher's record. And of course, Lewis Hamilton, how can I forget? Yeah, amazing run of form between 2014 and 2020. Of course, 21 was also phenomenal, but of course, he was quite unlucky with the decision by the FIA that season. But he only ever won 11 races in a season as his best record, which he achieved in 2014, 2018, and of course 2020. 2020 was a great season, but of course, in a lot of Hamilton's championship years, particularly 2019 and 2020, he did not have a teammate capable of challenging him, and his car, Mercedes W10 and the Mercedes W11, was often anywhere between like half a second to about 8/10 of a second faster than anyone else's car, meaning that Max Verstappen never really stood a chance of challenging for the World Championship that year, even though Max Verstappen at this point was more than ready of taking Lewis on if he had the car, which we saw in 2021. And of course, Max is now the main man in the sport. Of course, 19 wins in 22 races. It's a win percentage of 86%, the greatest win percentage ever, even better than what Jim Clark achieved in 1963 and 1965, where he won 7 races out of 10 in both seasons, with, of course, the 3 other races he failed to win those years due to mechanical problems with his Lotus Climax. Before him, Juan Manuel Fangio and Alberto Ascari also were dominating the sport without really sweating or being put under too much pressure, thanks to the cars that Ferrari, Maserati, Mercedes would produce them. But it also has to be said, though, of course, back in the 50s, 60s, and even the 70s and 80s, there were far fewer races being held back then. I think the most any of those seasons had a race was about only 16 races at the maximum per season, 16, 17, and it was only what's in 2004 that they started hosting more than 17 races a season, when of course Michael won 13 out of 18 races. But having said that though, with of course mechanical reliability having improved so much, I mean, it is very hard to definitively say Max Verstappen has driven the greatest ever season by a driver, but when you consider the fact that Scully, Fangio and Clark just didn't have the opportunity to achieve the sort of records that we've seen Max has achieved, but for me, Max has definitely gone beyond the likes of Michael Schumacher, Kimi Raikkonen, Fernando Alonso, Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. And of course, Max Verstappen also broke Vettel's record for most consecutive race wins at Monza when he won his 10th consecutive win, the first driver ever to make it 10 in a row. What an achievement. I was a bit surprised though when he had that terrible race at Singapore where Carlos Sainz became the only non-Red Bull driver to win a race that year. But nonetheless, a magnificent season, and frankly, he was the only one who was truly consistent. And apart from his usual moaning on the radio and attacking his engineer for all sorts of nonsense, I don't really have much to criticise him. Now on to, of course, who I think the second and third best drivers this season. Second best, Fernando Alonso. He had 8 podiums throughout the season, couldn't win a race, even though he came so close at Monaco. Had he timed his pit stop a bit better when the rain came lashing down, I think he could have won that day. But nonetheless, it doesn't take anything away from the fact that in an Aston Martin team that's not finished above 7th place the past 2 seasons, taking 5th place is still a great achievement. And to be honest, a lot of the reason why Aston only got 5th place is more due to, of course, Fernando Alonso's teammate. 3rd place, Lewis Hamilton, 39 years old now, kind of like Fernando Alonso, now approaching 43. Also had a great season, although of course Lewis did have a few bad races here and there. I think Lewis had about 5 or 6 podiums, doing the best he can in a very inconsistent Mercedes. 4th place, I would go with Lando Norris, once again for the 3rd season in a row, producing great performance in a McLaren team that's not very consistent. Once again, started the season with a very poor car. I mean, McLaren really cannot keep coming up with these sort of excuses, because eventually it's going to catch with them if they start the season off so slowly. Of course, Lando still is looking for his first race win, but of course he was very much the better driver over the course of the season compared to his rookie teammate Piastri, who was definitely an upgrade on Ricciardo. And I hope to see more from Lando. 2020. No, 5th place, I beg your pardon, Alex Albon. Now, I know some will say this is a bit ridiculous. Was he really the 5th best driver during 23? Yes. I know his season who started getting going drawing around Canada, but the fact of the matter is, he single-handedly clinched Williams 7th in the Constructors' title, whilst his teammate Sargent only scored 1 point. Look, Albon was the one, getting 2-3 appearances, scoring big points, 7th, 8th, 9th all the time for Williams. And in the end, he beat AlphaTauri by just 3 points. And of course, AlphaTauri are going to change their name this season, so of course this video is going to be out of date when they change it. Kind of maybe a bit over the top putting this guy up, but I think he deserves it. 6th place, Charles Leclerc. It's a real tricky one, really. I mean, I think at least 2 other drivers could have had 6th place, but to be honest, the quality of driving this 2023 really does illustrate that this is arguably the worst grid of drivers I think everyone has had since 2000, when the likes of Johnny Herbert was struggling towards the end of his career, Alex Wurz was out of form, Ricardo Zonta was never F1 material, and likewise Marc Genet and Gaston Rosicani didn't really deserve a place on the grid. Leclerc scored a few podiums here and there. He was still clearly the faster driver in qualifying compared to Sainz, but the number of mistakes did rack up. 7th place, I'd give it to Carlos Sainz. Amazing win at Singapore, but he himself had some pretty bad performances from time to time. And whilst, yes, I know driving for Ferrari is a very tough gig because they make a lot of strategic errors, to be honest, there isn't really anything I can say about Leclerc or Sainz, where they looked like they were really the 5 best drivers of the grid this season, I'm afraid. 8th place would go to Oscar Piastri for having a decent rookie season. It's not what I would call the greatest rookie season ever, because of course Jack Jordan and Lewis Hamilton deserve the prize for that accolade. But of course, Oscar won the sprint race at Qatar. He also got a podium in the feature race, and I think he also scored a couple of podiums throughout the season at Japan. And he qualified very well at Singapore, at Silverstone, I beg your pardon, and finished 4th that day. He's not the full package yet, but he did give Lando a few headaches here and there, and I hope he continues to improve in 24. 9th place, it has to be Yuki Tsunoda. Great into the season, although of course he didn't have a consistent benchmark due to, of course, Nick de Vries being sacked halfway through the year, Daniel Ricciardo getting injured, and Liam Lawson only doing about 5 races, so I can't really say too much about how well was he, how good was he really. But having said that, though, 23 was a massive improvement for Yuki compared to his first 2 seasons. 10th place, it has to be Pierre Gasly, mostly by default. Got the podium and the sprint race at Spa, and also got the podium at the main race at Zandvoort. But just like his teammate Ocon, he was very inconsistent, and both made a lot of errors. I mean, Gasly picked up way too many penalties for track limits, blocking drivers, and not paying attention. But having said that, though, to enter Alpine and be able to outscore Ocon in his first season against a driver who's been at Alpine since 2020 is actually quite impressive, and I think Gasly could well gain the upper hand as time goes on. 11th place, I think we'll have to go to Ocon. Got the podium at Monaco, but to be honest, whilst he's shown moments of quality and brilliance here and there, like at Las Vegas where he finished 4th, I expected more from him. This is his 4th. That was his 4th year at Alpine, and I have to say, his benefit of experience really should have shown, but he didn't utilize that advantage whatsoever. And I have to say, with 24, his contract coming to an end, he's going to be under some pressure, if I'm going to be honest. And I think Alpine could be snooping around for a new driver like Alex Albon, maybe Mick Schumacher, since of course he's now driving for their sports car team. Who knows? But oh god, I think needs to step it up in 24. 12th place, and the only last driver I'm going to rank here, Nico Hülkenberg. Great qualifying performance, consistently faster than Kevin Magnussen, but of course with Haas having the worst car on the grid, he couldn't really do much come race day, with his points coming at Melbourne and Austria. Haas broke the record for the most points scored for a team, finishing in 10th and last place in the constructors' standings with 12 points, which illustrates how good Hülkenberg was. But, you know, I think if I'm going to give out grades to all the drivers, obviously Max Verstappen, A star, absolutely by far, A star plus, whatever. Lewis Hamilton and Fernando Alonso get an A grade. Lando Norris, Alex Albon both get B plus. Leclerc, Sainz, Piastri all get a B. I think Yuki Tsunoda gets a C plus. Pierre Gasly gets a C plus. Ocon and Hülkenberg get a C grade from me. And now, of course, we're going to have to talk about all the other drivers on the grid outside the top 12, because my goodness me, there's so many of them that need to improve. George Russell comes in 13th place. Oh man, this was a very rocky season. Complaining on the radio a lot, getting frustrated, making errors under pressure. It wasn't good enough in my eyes. I know we ended the season strongly with second at Abu Dhabi, but he just didn't. He made so many mistakes. He just got involved in accidents he didn't need to get involved in. He got penalties he shouldn't be picking up. I kind of think he deserves a C at best, but my word, if he's going to prove himself to be a potential future team leader at Mercedes, He's got to stop beating Lewis Hamilton, but of course I know there's now a bit of tension between the pair of Hamilton and Russell, because I think Russell thought Hamilton would retire after 23, but of course he's extended his contract until the end of 25. And Hamilton doesn't feel like the team supports him, because of course Russell is more than capable of beating him on his day. And Russell kind of wishes he was in a position to be team leader, but he can't be because Lewis Hamilton insists that he wants to continue in F1. Very difficult situation with Mercedes. I really am interested to see how they solve that situation between Hamilton and Russell, because they are both number one alpha drivers. 14th place, Valtteri Bottas. Wow, this is tough to talk about. Alfa Romeo did not cover themselves in glory. They finished ninth in the constructors' table. Bottas narrowly beat Joe in both race pace and qualifying, but this really wasn't impressive. And you have to realise they got beat. Alfa Romeo got overtaken by Williams and AlphaTauri in a very mediocre season. Whilst Bottas did the bare minimum, it was not impressive in any sense, and his racecraft continues to be as questionable as ever. Not great at overtaking, very, very lackluster in defending. I mean, his qualifying performances are still okay, but he is quite prone to being outpaced by Joe in over one lap. 50th place. Oh, it's got to be Sergio Perez. I think only 9 podiums, including those 2 wins at Saudi Arabia and Baku. My goodness me, he was miles behind Max Verstappen this season, and his qualifying performances were, frankly, some of the worst I've seen for a number 2 driver at a top team. I mean, at times he was even worse than Albon and Gasly over one lap. I don't even know what to say, to be honest. 24 looks like it could well be the very last time we see Sergio Perez drive for Red Bull, and he's quite lucky that he has a secure contract and he brings sponsorship money from Telmex and Mexican businesses, because if he didn't have that, I don't think Red Bull would be very keen to keep him around. And yeah, I think he's given up. I think all Perez can do is now just focus on the best he can do, stop thinking about Max Verstappen and try to win a world championship, because frankly it's not going to happen. And start driving his own race like we've seen with Kimi Räikkönen and Bottas. Just focus on getting consistent results. Don't think about what your team is doing, because you're never going to match them, mate. 16th place, Zhou Guanyu got outpaced by Bottas, got outscored by Bottas, and of course was responsible for that calamitous pile-up at the start of the Hungarian Grand Prix, where he tagged Ricciardo, who had nowhere to go but to take out Ocon and Gasly, mimicking the antics of Bottas at the 2021 edition of that race. Yeah, I mean, people, the Alfa Romeo PR team are out here saying how Bottas is teaching Joe how to drive, but it seems to be Joe is now also picking up Bottas's bad driving habits. So, we had moments where he looked quick, but to be honest, again, it's just nowhere near good enough. I mean, I'm going to be brutally honest. Yi Fei probably arguably deserves an F1 seat if someone like Joe gets to race in F1. Yi Fei won the 2016 French Formula 4 Championship, the 2020 Euro Formula Open Series. Like, is he any worse than Joe? I don't think so. And I think Yi Fei also won the European Le Mans Series and the 2021 Asian Le Mans Series as well. Like, could he do any worse? No way. 17th place. I'm trying to think now. It's now going to be very difficult to pick who's been a worse driver. I mean, you know what? I'm going to shove Daniel Ricciardo in here. Yes, he picked up points at Mexico, but other than his decent performance in his first race back at Hungary, he didn't do a lot. He just got outpaced by Tsunoda so much whenever he did drive the AlphaTauri, and my word, he needs to improve so quickly. This is not good enough. I'm not going to rate Liam Lawson because he only had 5 races, and frankly, I didn't expect anything, but he did score points at Singapore, scoring 2 points in 9th place and helping AlphaTauri secure 8th place in in the constructor standings. I hope Liam Lawson gets a chance at F1 again because he was looking pretty good when he did drive this year. 18th place, and now we're getting to the real dross of the grid. 18th place is Kevin Magnussen. I had to take a bit of time to think of it because I have to say, I literally almost forgot he was on the grid this season. 2022, he had a very good start to the season, looked very quick, really exposed Mick Schumacher at times, but as the season went on, Mick Schumacher started to perform when Kevin was not. But this season, though, up against a far better driver, Nico Hulkenberg, Kevin has been found out. You know, in the past, he used to have Roman Grosjean, who was not very consistent, meaning that Kevin could shine and step up to the plate to score points for the Haas team. But now, you know, with such a poor car, Kevin just totally disappeared into the background. Got outscored, outraced, and outqualified by Hulkenberg. And I have to say, 24 could be his last season if things don't improve. You know, he now has 2 young daughters at home. He's married, and I have to say, I don't think the motivation is there for Kevin anymore compared to Hulkenberg, who, you know, has sat 3 years of F1 on the sidelines. And, you know, I think even though he's now only, 31 years old, he's not that much younger than me, to be honest. I think this time is coming to an end. 19th place, it's got to be Lance Stroll. Just a really poor season from a driver who has now completed 7 years of Formula 1. Inconsistent. Still drives the Aston Martin like it's a lower midfield car. I don't really want to go into it. I'll just pick out a couple of examples. Canada, Alonso finished 2nd. Stroll finished 9th, fighting Valtteri Bottas. Then there was those 3 races at Monza, Singapore, and Qatar where he just absolutely had the biggest stinkers ever. Qualifying 20th at Monza at Singapore, and of course at Singapore he crashed the car in qualifying. And then of course at Qatar he qualified 17th, and then went and attacked his personal trainer. And at that point, everyone was pretty much on the tirade against Lance Stroll, you know, saying that he wanted to be a tennis player. He always took a helicopter to karting tracks, and whenever people saw him and his dad at the Aston Martin factory, his dad was full of enthusiasm, whilst Lance Stroll looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. It doesn't take any genius to work out that Lance needs to improve, but, you know, I would not be surprised if Lance gets to see an F1 as long as either he or his dad wants him to be there. 20th place, it's got to be Logan Sargent. I know he's a rookie, but the Williams was more than capable of being able to score more than 1 point in his hands, even for a rookie. And I have to say, I'm disappointed he didn't even get close to scoring 5 points. Absolutely nowhere near close to Alex Albon all season long. And the only reason why he scored a point at his home track in Cota at the US Grand Prix was because 2 cars got disqualified in Hamilton and Leclerc. And of course, the worst driver of the season, it's got to be Nick de Vries. Got sacked after 10 races. I think that says it all. Got destroyed by Yuki Tsunoda. Never really looked like he was comfortable with the AlphaTauri. Now, I will give him a bit of sympathy, considering he has spent a long time now racing in Formula E and sports cars, where the cars are slower, they're a lot heavier. So he had to adapt his driving style to an F1 car, but he just couldn't do it in time. And at the age of 28 years old, yeah, he's kind of like, it was always the expectation was he had to perform now and not later. Like, he's not like someone that Red Bull can wait to really develop anymore. And I do find it very strange why they picked him instead of Liam Lawson. Of course, I know some people at Red Bull complained about Liam Lawson's attitude, which is why he arguably only got like 5 races this season rather than the full season. But hey, as for the actual season preview, 2024 preview, I think I'm going to have to take a bit of time to think of some predictions, but if I'm going to be honest, I don't think a lot is going to change in 2024. Max should still win at least 15 or 16 races this season. I don't think the grid order is going to change much, but thank you for watching here at Crystal Racing.